So for my passion project, I decided to create a magazine, and in this magazine I covered two main topics, which were food and fashion. I chose to do this topic because I've always had a love for fashion, and since high school started, I've definitely grown to have a love for food and trying out new and healthy different recipes. So ever since I was young, I was always obsessed with creating outfits. I actually got like a mannequin for my birthday, and I would take different outfits, put them together, and take pictures of them. And then I would look back later at those outfits for outfit inspiration. And during my high school years, I got into healthy eating and just kind of experimenting with new recipes and seeing what I could come up with. My freshman year of high school, I actually created a blog. It was called Lauren's Lifestyle, and I covered like food, fashion, and just other lifestyle things like decor. But I had to stop that blog because I was just not having enough time to do it. And then my sophomore year, I took a graphic design class as well as 3 other art classes, and it just really showed me how I have a passion for art and graphic design, and I think that all ties in really well to my magazine. So in the very beginning of this class, when I was still kind of like exploring what I wanted my actual project to be, I had a lot of different ideas and I didn't really know where to go with it. I thought about publishing a book, I thought about creating another blog, I thought about doing something with plants, or even like redesigning a hospital, but I ended up combining 2 of my ideas of a blog and a book, and I feel like a magazine is kind of like a combination of those 2, so that's what I decided on. So for the research phase of this class, I researched where to publish my magazine, how to take photos, how to design a magazine cover. I watched lots of YouTube videos of people publishing and designing their own magazines. I got inspiration for page layouts on Pinterest and how to write articles. So my product was to create a magazine that has inspiration, food, and fashion. My goals for this project were to create a product that I could look back on and be really proud of, and something that I could use to demonstrate my passion for food, because I am planning on going into dietetics at K-State, which is, if you don't know, it's like the study of food and how it impacts your body. So I thought it would just tie in really well. So walking through like the whole process that I took in order to create my magazine, I started out by researching the different ways I could print and or publish a magazine. I figured at first I wanted to use like Blurb, which is basically a website you can publish books, magazines, practically anything through. That didn't end up working. So then I looked into printing it at home, and I figured I didn't really want to do that. So then I looked into Walgreens because Walgreens is easy, so that's what I ended up doing, and I really liked the results. And then I planned out all the recipes and the outfits and like the fashion content that I wanted to get, so I had 2 Google Docs, and I just had one for fashion and one for food, and I went through all the different articles I was going to write. I then looked at Pinterest for inspiration on like article layouts, color schemes, kind of like the graphics and the fonts that I wanted to use. I then designed all my pages. This was probably the process that took the longest, and it was what I was doing most days in class. I used Canva to design all my pages, and I really liked it. It's really like easy to create what you want to create. So then I ended up writing all my articles. I kind of did this as I like designed page by page. I wrote articles about all the food and the fashion. So then also throughout the whole semester, I was getting content of stuff that I could put in my magazine, such as like pictures of food, pictures of outfits. I was like testing certain recipes and seeing if like they actually tasted good. Some of the recipes I've already been like using consistently. And then I was editing the content, so this would consist of like editing photos, making the lighting look like more bright so it would be better in the magazine, cropping the photos if there's anything in the background that I didn't want, etc. So then I ended up planning out my magazine order. So this kind of just made sure I had all my pages in the correct order. I did it on a Google Doc. I would just take a screenshot of whatever was on Canva, and then I would lay it out page by page. And then once I got kind of towards the end, I just went through and I reviewed everything, and I made sure that all the spellings were correct and it looked how I wanted it to. So then it was time to print my magazine, and like I said, I did this through Walgreens. So I basically just downloaded the PDFs that I had created on Canva, and then I uploaded them, and I used like a heavier, sturdier paper than like normal document paper, just so it would be a little bit more like a magazine. And then finally I got to put together my magazine. So for this, it wasn't like a normal magazine binding. I just hole punched it and then I put a cute little ribbon and like tied it together, just because I didn't think about how I was going to like bind a magazine before I printed it, and I ended up having separate pages instead of one long page that you could staple. So that's one thing I would have done different. I would have thought about that beforehand. So throughout my whole project, my idea changed and developed with how my colors were going to be, like the color scheme I used, and also how I was going to end up printing the magazine. So in the beginning, I didn't really have a color palette. I was just kind of like finding things on Pinterest that I liked here and there, and I was just kind of creating each page individually. And once I was like 2 or 3 pages in, I realized it's not really lining up and it's not really matching. So then I got on Pinterest again and I found a color scheme, and I stuck to the color scheme, and it ended up turning out really nice. So I also ran into some problems when figuring out how to print my magazine. I realized that I had made like the dimensions the wrong size. I thought I made them the correct size, and I didn't. And I like couldn't change it at that point. There was too many pages, and I was just thinking it would be easier to print it through a new website. So that's what I did. So the highlights of my project, I would say finding the theme and the color palette that I wanted to use. I wasn't really sure what I was going for, but like once I saw the color scheme and like saw how my pages were fitting together, it just made me really happy because, I don't know, it's just, I'm proud of it and I really like it. And then also another highlight would be finally printing out my magazine, and like when I first saw it for the first time, it was really cool, just like because I'd always seen it on a computer screen. I'd been working on it for a whole semester, and to like see it in person in my hands, that was really cool. So the struggles for my project, I kind of already touched on this a bit, but figuring out how to print, like I said, like the dimensions that I would use, finding my true style for my color palette and my color scheme and fonts and all of that. And then also another big thing for me was time management. I normally am a pretty good person with time management, but just trying to find time in between like school, work, like social life, family, and like doing this, finding time to create all the content, take pictures of it, it was kind of hard. In the beginning, I wish I would have, I guess, tried to design my pages a little bit faster, because also in the beginning I wasn't sure again on like my actual theme. So inside the classroom, the majority of my time was spent editing my pages and the layouts, also editing photos that I took of the contents and writing articles, as well as doing research in the very beginning of like where I was going to print through and all of that. And outside of the classroom, I took photos of outfits and food, I created recipes, I baked things, as well as printing the magazine and building it. Okay, so throughout this whole semester and this process of creating this magazine, I have learned how I can prioritize my time and use time management skills. I also learned that I have a love for graphic design. I kind of already knew this, but it just like ensured that I do have a love for graphic design and like designing things. So what did I learn about my project topic? I learned how to create a magazine cover. I learned about the different printing processes and the different websites you can go through. I learned about editing and writing articles, and I also learned how to make an eye-catching magazine. So what did you learn about the learning process through this experience? I learned that it's important to stay open-minded. Like I said in the beginning, I was kind of unsure of what I wanted to go into, and I ended up just combining both of my ideas, and I think that was really smart. And yeah, I would just say have an open mind because you never know what you're going to learn about, and it's just kind of fun to experiment and find new ideas. I would also say it's very important to stay organized, especially in a class like this, because you're kind of working pretty independently on your own, and just making sure you have the correct deadlines if you need to like publish anything by a certain date, or if you need to test something out, depending on what your project is. I would just say to stay organized and keep on top of everything. What would you change about this process and the way you went about it? Personally, I would have picked my color scheme out first from a magazine because I feel like that held me back for a little bit. I couldn't really find my like genuine style that I wanted to go for. I would have scheduled in particular detail on what I was going to be doing for each day, like taking photos of content and everything, because towards the end of my project I was kind of rushing with like getting all my fashion content, and it's just because I ran out of time. I thought I had more time than I did, and yeah. And finally, I would have printed my pages so they're like a complete like long page, not two separate pages, because I did end up hole punching my magazine and then tying it together, which I think it looks a little bit less professional than if it were to be like stapled and like binded together, but I just didn't think of that at the time, so that's one thing I would have changed. So how has my learning changed as a result of this class? I've learned to be a lot more open-minded about things and just kind of like go with the flow. In the beginning, like I did say, I wasn't sure what I was researching, so I would just say be open-minded. What would be your parting advice to someone or someone else about your topic or the learning that took place this semester? I would say that building a magazine is a very fun process, and if you're at all interested in it, even just for fun, even if it's not for a class, I would say go for it, because it was just a lot of fun to see the whole thing come together. Like getting all the magazine pages back after I printed them, it was just really cool to see like what I'd been seeing on my computer for so long, like in my hands, and then building it. It was just a really cool process. I would also say it's not that difficult to design pages because you can personalize them to your style and you can just really make them unique to yourself. And I would also say it's completely worth it to make a magazine because you can look back on your magazine, you can see how you've grown, how your style's changed, and you can make your magazine about practically anything you want. I just chose food and fashion because that's what I'm into. Maybe you're into sports, you can make it on sports. I would just say do whatever you want in your magazine and it will end up turning great. So overall, I really enjoyed this semester. I thought it was a great way to end my senior year, and I'm thankful for the whole experience and the whole class.